Hey everyone, Maury Curtis Dunbar here with Painted Studio. It is the last few days of September and we're working on some projects here. Now you can see I've got gloves on. Yesterday we tried an epoxy pour with a double-barreled cup and it was okay. Didn't like how it worked out. So I spent a little time last night, did a little research trying to figure out why it didn't go the way I wanted it to go. I think I have it down. I think I understand, but we're gonna try it one more time. Actually, I have 2 more canvases that I primed for this, or 2 more boards, and we're gonna try it on 2 different surfaces and we're gonna see how that goes. So I'm gonna flip this down. There you go. So here's my board. It was just a wooden board with backing that I got at Dick Blick. And these cups I get on Amazon, and they're like a dozen for $10 or something like that. I did not buy the fancy expensive silicone ones because I don't know how often I'm gonna need these. So I'd rather have something I can use a few times and then toss out. As you can see, this one was already used. We used it yesterday. But the cool thing is that because of the way we poured, whatever settled down in the bottom and dried also dried level. They're same amount of stuff on either side. So we've already mixed up our epoxies over here, and I've mixed colors up already. So first thing I'm gonna do is pour some colors, and we've got all kinds of, we've got our Pretty in Pink, Seafoam, Star of a Loon, Gold Dragon, True Silver, and just a little white. Now all these colors other than the white are our, let me see if I can find one that doesn't have a label with my fingerprints all over it. They are our resin art epoxy pigments, and we are using for our epoxy today, we are using, let me find my box over here, reach a little further, our Aristocrat liquid glass. And the nice thing with Aristocrat, I keep saying it wrong. I keep wanting to say Aristocats because I have that Disney movie thing in my head. The Aristocrat boxes have on the side just how much each of the kits should cover. So depending on the size you're purchasing, you got an idea of your square footage. This one, we've done 4 canvases. These are 4 feet. These are a foot each. And we have basically, in a quart kit, which should have covered 8 feet, we've used the entire bottle to do these 4, but that's because we're doing some crazy pouring. So just know that if you're going to do some really multicolored pours, and I had stuff left over in cups last night, you're going to use more epoxy than you think. Those numbers are for a straight pour. And it covers, that square footage for what you need it for when you poured that. This, we're gonna have it a lot dripping over the sides. We're gonna use a lot more than is being discussed just on the side of the box. All right, so we're gonna start out with some Star of a Loon. And I'm just gonna layer some colors in here. A little gold. And then once I get all of my colors in and I've got as much as I think I need, I will pour the clear epoxy in on the other side. And I'm pouring this slowly so they don't mix as I pour them. I want to kind of keep my layers separated. And the one thing is, I'm gonna put a little white in here. White tends to like to eat all these other metallics. So we just wanna put a little bit of white in here for contrast. One of the ones I did yesterday, I put too much white in and it totally turned everything like this pasty, ashy white color. So I was not pleased with that result. Again, learned from it. And I've got most of my colors in here, so I want to put a little more of one other color, and then we're gonna put the clear in on the other side. I think my biggest problem yesterday might have been that I poured too fast. So I might want to take my time and pour a little slower today. And of course, if this one looks like crap, you won't even see this video. Okay, so we're good and even. And we're gonna slowly pour. I'm gonna stand up so I can see this better. I'm gonna slowly pour. Oh yeah, this is way more of what I wanted to see yesterday. Look how pretty that is. I'm just going to take this around the edge. And I'm going to set it upside down in this corner so it all drains out. Meanwhile, I'll come back over here. I'll work this product over the edge here so that it's got a place to run when we start shifting our epoxy around. Now I put a little bit of the pink in, but I put so little in you almost don't see it. So that may end up being a little extra stuff poured in here at the end. Let's put that over here and let that settle there. Let's start taking care of our edges. So I'm going to stick my finger in this kind of already goopy mess here and run the finger along that edge so that I'm basically creating a little bit of a slip coat right here along the sides. Because once I start to heat this and shift it, it will run over the sides, and if I create a little bit of a slip coat, the leveling on the sides is more even. This will just slide off the side evenly instead of having these big, awkward, bulky dribbles that don't really help anybody. All right, so get my fingers in there. So let's hope this one comes out better than the other ones, because I did not, they were just a little muddy for me, and already the way this is poured, I'm much happier with. It's very pretty. Now, if I can just get it to stay that pretty, that'll be good. I can't guarantee it, because, you know, epoxy has a mind of its own, and it shifts, and it shivers, and it shimmies, and it'll level out. For those not familiar with this, epoxy levels at approximately 1/8 of an inch thick on its own, unless, of course, you build a lip up around it so that it has a way to build up. There's a fly buzzing around in here, and I'm going to be very unhappy if I come back and find dead flies in my epoxy tomorrow. Okay, so let me wipe my finger off a little bit before I grab my torch. The first thing I'm going to do now that I have this poured is warm it up a little bit. Okay, so what I've just done in warming it, I've just made it a lot more liquid. Now if this is not moving as much as I'd like, let me liquefy it a little more. There we go. That made it a lot more liquidy. Now, if I had liked it the way it was, I could have poured some more epoxy just sort of around it and let it kind of melt together, which is always a possibility. But when you're doing these pours, you're shifting stuff around and helping things move. And I might just stick a finger in here too and help my process a little. And if you notice, I'm sort of being very specific in the way I'm sticking my fingers in, because that will affect, in the end, the final pattern. So I'm adding swirls that would look organic as opposed to something that looked like my finger stuck in there. Ooh, this is coming out nice. I like this with a little bit of swirls in there. Let's bring some product down here. Sorry folks, I gotta tip it towards me just to move it a little bit. This helps me see what's going on. This has kind of a little bit of an oceany nautilus shell feeling right there. And I don't really want to lose that if I can help it. Let's see. I might just pour a little bit of clear in here. There we go. Now, of course, this is going to shift even more as it dries. And if I wanted to, I could leave it completely as it is right now. And we're gonna get it'll stay close to what it is. Or we can do some other stuff, which I'm gonna show you. I really kind of like that one with the epoxy like that. The only thing I'm not crazy about is that big, clear to peachy, because that's where all the white went. So let's see if I can just put a little dribble of pink in there. And then let's take this and pull it in. That's nice. I like that. Because all I'm really kind of doing is weaving it into the other color. I'm definitely saying this second pour is, or this third pour is more successful than my first two. I like that, just that little shot of pink right there. Maybe it needs just a tad more. Right in there. There we go. So now I've got that all blended in. I'm going to take my torch, get my finger right in there, and we're going to level it. Now that already looks awesome. If I want to make a little bit of shimmer effect happen, or a little more cell effect, or if I have those little pinhole things in there, I can spritz it with my denatured alcohol, which is right behind me. So we do this, and it causes a little bit of cell reaction, which is super pretty. Let me see if I can take my glove off and zoom in on that so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I guess I can't zoom in the same way I would otherwise, so See if I can bend the camera a little closer to get it to you, because that's really pretty. See, if I lift this up and tilt it, obviously it will all slide in a direction towards whichever way I'm tilting. But I really like that, otherwise I got a little blank spot right there. And I'm gonna take a little bit of clear because I don't want any other color right there. I'm checking my surface to make sure I'm got no other dimples. And I'll take my little sticky, because that one just wants to be a hole right there. I don't know why. Sometimes you get that spots. Now this is a canvas I love. This looks like somewhere between a nautilus shell and a wave, and that I'm very happy with. So I'm gonna pick the other board up. We're gonna set this one to the side to dry. Okay. Now I'm gonna do one other thing, and everybody should have these if you're an epoxy person. Should always have a packet of shims around, because then I can go, and if you swing this over, I can come under here, under my container, or under the lid, but usually I go under the container first to level out my container so that we don't have a lot of running in odd directions. There we go. And I think I'm a little low in this corner over here. When you're working with old tables, you don't necessarily get level, and that's not good either. I wasn't happy with that. I'll get it in a few. It's just a little bit right under this side here. That's too thick. I need a shim with a thinner edge. And this is a big deal, because sometimes you get a shim with a thick edge, sometimes you get one with a razor edge, and I needed one with a razor edge so that I didn't lift it too much. It still wants to lean this way. Let's see if I can get that leveled. There we go. And of course, I have stuff all over me as always. All right, so we're gonna come back here. You see we're still set up. I'm gonna change gloves so that I can handle the next canvas without leaving deposits on it that I don't wanna see. And then we're gonna go to our next board. Okay, now this one's a little different. This one, I have poured luster stone. I've troweled on luster stone, and I have poured, I've run our Lotus roller through it. So we already have a texture, and you can see that texture has dimension. So this is gonna work really differently, and honest to God, I have no idea what it's gonna look like. So say a little prayer. Let's get all the clear in this side. And then I'll use whatever colors I have to get an even amount poured. And then I'll fill in the blank spots with the clear as needed. Or with the colors as needed, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of my project, and sometimes when I'm thinking, I lose words. I'm too busy thinking of what I've got going on in my brain that the words don't come out of my mouth all the time. So what I'm doing here is I'm pouring the last of my clear epoxy in here so that I will match the colors to the level of what's left on that side. And then if there are any blank spots, I'll pour in with whatever's left in the colors. So I'm going to start out right in here with the seafoam. And then we'll have some silver. Okay. And stop blooping. And I think we're going to put the gold in. And again, just a very little bit of white. The white likes to swallow up the metallics. Here's some of the Elune, Star of Elune. So if it whitens those colors up a little bit, it's still going to look very pretty. Yesterday's color choices just turned like into a peachy pink, disgusting mess. All right, I'm getting close to even with my colors here. Yep, I got it. There we go. All right, so again, we're going to pour. I'm going to stand up so I can see. And we're going to start with a slow pour. It sure looks pretty when it's pouring. This one looks a little like ice cream. Okay, go around the edge. And we're just going to plop that in the corner and so it can deposit. Alrighty, now we're going to work the edges. And for those who are not familiar with epoxies, you have about 45 minutes worth of work time on it once it's been mixed. That's called the pot time. So your pot time on this, between 30 and 40 minutes, 30 and 45 minutes, depends on how, believe it or not, it'll depend on just how narrow the container is that you've got your epoxy in. The narrower and deeper the container, the more likely you are to get a heat reaction, and therefore it speeds up the curing on this. If you if you want it to stay open longer, then you just sort of pour the stuff in a low, flatter pan, keep it spread thin, and it will stay open longer. So, you know, if you were mixing up a gallon, don't put it in like a metal can, put it in a paint pan. It'll stay functioning better. It'll work better longer. I think that made sense. I'm trying to paint while I'm trying to give instructions, and that's not always the best thing for me. Okay, let's turn this around. And I'm literally just smearing the edges with different colors. Why am I using different colors? Because if I feel the need that I want to fill in one color or another, once I've started doing this, I don't want to have run out of it because I poured it all off on the sides where it's just going to drip down and end up on the paper by the time this is finished leveling anyway. So my epoxy will sit. This is going to be these are the last things I'm doing today, so I can leave here, walk away, and my epoxy will, this will be hard in the morning, so it'll have a good 12 hours plus cure. It is a full cure in 72 hours. completely usable if you were using it on a food surface or something in 72 hours. Okay, I think, because I did not give myself as much epoxy as I have before, I think I'm just going to take whatever's left of all of these little colors and sort of create another ring pour in here. Because I don't really feel like mixing up more clear epoxy, quite frankly. You know, if I took a tool and scraped this across, that would be great, but then I'd lose all those nice definitions. So what I'm really trying to do is actually create a second round of color definition with the second round of paint colors. And this pink is very intense, and it's going to want to take over as much as the white did. That's okay. We'll work with it. Right. Get the silver in here. So I think I've got plenty of paint in here, and I'm just going to start a slow pour that goes maybe almost like a yin and yang. Let's do it right here. All right, and then we'll take that cup and dump that there. Let that sit in that corner. So now we've got a couple really interesting looking combinations happening here. And I'm getting some shifting, things are moving that way. So I'm going to start leaning this a little bit this way just to keep it from running off the edge before I've hit it with a torch and done the manipulation that I want to do. Alrighty. All the goop out. Okay, there we go. I'm feeling that's probably the last use on that cup. All right, so let's pull this around a little bit just so that we got some edging here. I can already feel how different this is because of that texture under. It's just a little more challenging to even do something like move the epoxy to the edge of the board, because luster stone has a little bit of a texture as well as the epoxy, as well as the texture we rolled in there with the roller. Okay, clean hand. Nice. Okay, so now I've liquefied everything. Let me put my glove back on. Now remember, your epoxy, whatever you pour it, needs to be in a place where it cures between 69 and about 80 degrees. My studio is regularly about 70 degrees, so I don't have any problems here. But I know other people have had issues with cures not being complete, because even though they did everything right, because quite frankly, their studio was cold. And if your studio's cold and you try to let this cure, it doesn't work. All right, I've got a lot of, because we've got so much texture, the epoxy just does not want to move quite as easily, so I'm just adding a little extra here and there. I'm gonna get this thing covered if it kills me, folks. And I am actually very much paying attention to where I'm placing my colors. Because I do want to have a nice cohesive end product here. Spread that out, catch that into things. Let's see what else we got. I knew there was more here somewhere. You're getting there, almost there. Unlike yesterday, I will probably end up using every last drop of all the epoxies I've mixed. And that includes the white. See, that white is white. And if you're not careful, it will completely swallow up pigments. That's why white and black solid colors with metallic pigments are used very sparingly. Okay, now I've gotten that done. I'm gonna play with my gun again. Now this has gotten a little muddy on the edges, which I'm okay with, because I think if I manipulate this a little, I can get some of that to run off and we'll get better color clarity. Let's get this over here. This is the one spot. It's all grabbing right there. And so I gotta play with that a little bit. The only colors I seem to have left of anything are pink or white. So since I know I don't want the white to eat up everything in here, I'm gonna go back with the pink. So this would have been, you know, more like the first pour, A, if they didn't have texture, and B, if I had mixed a little more, probably more clear epoxy, because I've really super saturated color in here. So let's take some of this and do it like this. And my We're still getting some nice shapes out of this, but I'm not quite as happy with this one. Again, trying it for the first time over texture. We gotta shift things a little more. Take my torch. I just gotta look and see where I might be having some bubble spots. Clear is one thing, bubble is a different. I think let's try something here. There we go. I didn't love that big white blob there, so I just felt the need to manipulate it a little bit. There we go. I think I'm seeing pretty much everything covered. All right, let's take it, torch it one more time. Okay, I think the bloom on that's going to be really lovely. I'm going to take a little alcohol spritz, make those cells pop out of that, make the pigments shift. Wow, did that make a lovely difference. Really nice. Let's hope that the alcohol's burned off, evaporated. Okay, so I do see a little texture. There's a couple ridges popping through, but it's really not showing any major texture underneath. It might show some more as this thing settles a little more and runs off the edges a little more. We might see some. I won't know until tomorrow.